Hey, I'm T.A. Charlie, and welcome to the Road to Concord with Professor Joe Bakanovic. Homeroom is on Rumble. You just go to Rumble and search channels for the Road to Concord. It's one word. When you find it, you go ahead and you click follow. It might mean you got to set up an account, but it's fast, it's easy, it's free. I did it, you can do it. For those technologically challenged members of the class, you can also catch us on Facebook and YouTube. After the show, it's uploaded to Podbean, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and BitChute. Just look for The Road to Concord. You can go to the blog page, that's theroadtoconcord.com. That's where you'll find all your show notes, study notes, and handouts for the class. The phone is working. If you don't know how to call in, email us and we'll think about it. Finally, you can email a professor at joe@theroadtoconcord.com. He's a little slow, but he'll eventually get around to emailing you back. This show is currently mainly listener-sponsored. If you are interested in advertising your business on the show, please email us. With that said, we ask for your participation on a value-for-value basis. If you find our show of value to you, then you provide an equivalent portion of your labor and treasure through the donate link on the Road to Concord blog page, the show description on Rumble, and in the comments on the other streams. And thank you to all of you who have and will support this show.
Good morning. Welcome to the Road to Concord. Today is Tuesday, April 14th, 2026. I'm your host, Joe Bakanovic. We will be back in our study of Genesis. We're doing chapters 12 and 13 today, Abram's call and travel to the land of Canaan. Before we get going, I want to apologize. I'm not doing good today. The pollen count here is very high, especially with the grasses. My hay fever is in overdrive. So I'm heavily medicated and still feel like I've been run over by a truck. And I have threatened Charlie and Natasha. I have threatened them with laying down and dying live on air, just putting my head down on the desk and refusing to answer anybody yelling at me, pretending to be dead. I told them I'd come back to life tomorrow like J.R. Ewing after that one episode of Dallas. If you can remember that, you're dating yourself. If not, for all you millennials and zenillennials and whatever, Google it. All right. We're in Genesis. And again, if you're new to this one, if you're just stumbling upon us, it's not so much a study of, it's more of an apologetics study. It's more setting the stage for the rest of what's going to come in the Bible. And it's we're looking at the precursors that everything else in Scripture is going to bounce off of. So let me get this up here. I've been threatening to go to the ESV version of the Scriptures. Nope. I did a little more researching on that, and I'm not going to do that. I'll be staying with the NASB, but I will go to the NASB 1995. It's an updated version, and from time to time, when necessary, I will go back to the ESV for clarity purposes. So we're in chapter 12. We're in verse 1. And Yahweh says, he says, go forth from your country. He's talking to Abram. And from your relatives and from your father's house to the land which I will show you. Okay, real quick, right there. I want to cover this first section, then we're going to look at some maps real fast, and then we'll come back to verse 4. You have to understand their culture. In most of the culture, the Middle East at this particular time, families lived in the same household. If you were in a city, you literally lived in the same compound. You would build a room onto the side of the other existing rooms, and eventually you'd form like a square with a little, like a open garden area in the middle of the square, and each room of the house was somebody else's house, one son's house with his wife. That's why the wife would leave her parents' house and go live with her husband, who lived with his father. That's why the Messiah says, my father's house has many rooms, meaning that he's got a room for each and every one of us. That's the imagery here. So he's being told to leave his father's house. And remember, his father at some point in time dies in Haran. So we'll get to that in a minute. And then we're going to enter here into a sevenfold alignment or blessing and stuff. Yahweh says, and I will make you a great nation. Okay, a great goy, or that's the word in there. Goy, goyim. That's the same word for Gentiles, but it also means nation. It can mean people. So when we translate this a great nation, people works. It could say, I will make you a great people, like, Cherokee nation, Cherokee people. Okay. This is important. Charlie, I don't know. You read the Hebrew. Could you pop on here for a minute?
Mm-hmm.
Could you maybe expand on what I'm looking at here? Because I know you know it. Why is it important to understand that the Hebrew word goy and the way we conceptually think about it can cause us trouble if we just think Gentile or nation and we don't realize it can mean people? You want to expand on that for me for a little bit? Because this isn't a nothing burger, people. This is one of these things we're doing Genesis for. You got to get this concept in your head because it'll have ramification.
Yeah, this is like we were talking the other day about Hebrew versus English and how many times, there's a single Hebrew word, but it has multiple meanings. And that's why context is king in the Hebrew language as you study it. But yeah, you're right, because Goy can be nation, it can be people, it can be Gentile. But you've got to look at the context and see what you're talking about here. And in this particular context, I would say that it means both nation and people. Because not only is he going to be the father of many nations or many peoples, but his posterity is going to be, like it says, like the sands of the sea and things like that. So it's got a little symbology of both of those as you go forward.
Yeah.
Now, Gentile, that's a different story, and that's usually a more modern translation of that word, if you would. It's more in Second Temple times. You'll see it used in that manner, not so much in the Old Testament, but it does start to move that way.
So in the Old Testament, especially in Genesis and the Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Bible, am I wrong to say that when we would want to translate it as Gentile, we should still think nation from the Deuteronomy 32 worldview?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely. Yes. For that purpose.
Not a people that belongs to another El, a people that belongs to a different God.
Yeah. From this worldview viewpoint, yes, that would make a lot of sense at this point.
Yes. So this is one of those words that you got to be careful with. It's a bigger word than what you think it is. And if you want to study your scriptures for clarity of understanding, that's why we harp on these Hebrew words. Get the full context. And when you do that, go look at your English translation sometime. Look up the definition of nation. It doesn't just mean a group of people within a border. There are many nations within the United States, 50 of them that I know of, right off the bat, because each state is a nation.
That's why, it says in the scriptures that Ephraim will become a company of nations. That's exactly what we are here, or at least what we're supposed to be here in the United States, is a company of 50 sovereign nations that are just federated together.
Yes. So, and that's very different from a whole bunch of nations under one crown. That's an empire.
Yeah,
that's not a company of nations.
Different. Right.
Definitions are important. So thanks, Charlie. Just stay there because we got a couple more coming up here. Don't go anywhere.
Okay.
It's a sevenfold thing. It says, and I will make you a great people or nation, and I will bless you, and I will make your name great, your Shem, and so you shall be a blessing to the whole world eventually. And I will bless those who bless you, and the one who curses you, I will curse. And then it says, in all the families of the earth, you will be, the earth will be blessed in you. That's a Messianic phrase. But that last one right there, and the one who curses you, I will curse. It uses 2 Hebrew words here for curse and curse. The one who curses you is not the same word as the one that Yahweh is going to curse. that Hebrew word there, I don't know if you looked it up, Charlie.
I did. Mm-hmm.
Okay. It can mean you can get yourself in a real hurt locker here with Abram quick.
Yeah,
If you think I have to curse you, Abram. Oh, no. Charlie, explain how it can mean just slight him.
Yeah. Just to treat lightly, to not recognize him, and that kind of thing. That the first use of the word here is a very, very light form of what we think of as curse. Now, the second one, I believe, is a little bit more
that's
traditional. Is what we think of as a curse, a more ardent type of thing. But that's So what you're saying here is, you just when we get later into the story here, you see this actually take place with Pharaoh. And the thing with Sarai here. So you see this happening, and we'll talk about that when we get there, because there's also a word used there that we, use the word plague, but it's more, this is Exodus language. This is the strike, the blow against Egypt. So this is already beginning. It's already beginning to happen at this point. And so this is echoing forward here, that in the English you wouldn't
foreshadowing.
You might see it, but because they use plague in both places in the English, but it's more than that.
This is why I stress the desirability of tracing concept over word study. If you trace word study, a lot of this stuff will get missed in the English. But like Charlie and I were talking about, he has conceded that because I focus on concept so much, I catch a few, not all, a few of these things that are lost in translation. I still catch them because I'm tracing the concept. So to that extent, this one line, and those who curse you, I will curse. I am not saying that this is what that scripture says, but I am saying it's similar. What I'm about to tell you, it's Charlie, tell me if the pattern I'm about to translate here, if it fits the pattern, the idea. It's not saying it, but it's the idea of, if you slight or insult Abram, I'll curse you in return.
Yeah.
Isn't that's the idea.
That would be the idea behind it. Yes.
So you give a little insult, you're going to get a lot more back in return.
Yes. And that's what we see happening too. So it's interesting.
Thank you, sir. Now, what I want to do here real quick before we get going anymore, let's share this up here. And I just want to show you some of where we're going to be going. From all the way up, it doesn't show it here because it's up in the map, but up in the top there, Haram, where Terah dies. That happened before Yahweh calls Abram out. So in certain passages, it says he called him out of but he was already in Haram. And when he gets called, then he comes all the way down here into the land of Canaan, which is in this general area. And then he's going to go into the land of Egypt. And be careful of, it says Zoan, but be careful, because this whole area down here we call Sinai, that was also the territory or the lands of Egypt right there, the frontier of Egypt at that point too. We call it the Sinai, but that was also considered at that time part of Egypt. And then he's going to return. So this is one of the maps, and this is generally the land of Canaan right in this area here, Canaan. We see Shechem and Bethel, Jerusalem, and we'll get to all of them. And then down here, Hebron. These are places we'll see here as we go through this story. And then right here is where Abram's first going to settle. I know it's a little blurry, but that's Shechem. You see down the bottom right, the red square, the area where we're at. And you see up here, Shechem. And then I got a bigger map here. Shechem is Gilgal is a place that we should all at least that should make sense to us. We should recognize that word. And Shiloh is another important one. And there's a couple other places here. Then from there, he's going to move to Bethel Ai. Okay. And that's over here in this red square down here, we'll see. So he's going to move a little southwest. He's going to move between Bethel and Ai. And Bethel's an important city. It's the second most mentioned city in all of Scripture. The only one that's mentioned more than Bethel is Jerusalem. So here's a closer view of Bethel and Ai. And Ai is going to be prominent in the story also in this whole region here with Joshua. And then after that, he's going to move down into the Negev, which is basically a wasteland. It's a desert down here in the Negev. Still is to this day. It's, you see where Beersheba is and Gerar, Hebron and Mamre up here. And then he's going to go into Egypt. And we know he's going to go farther west, into Egypt proper for today. But this is the Egyptian domain at this time. And then when he comes back, he's going to give this area here in red, the Jordan Valley. He's going to let Lot take that. And he's going to take the area of Canaan here on the left. So this is a map from later in the storyline. And then this is where they think Sodom and Gomorrah were. But this is the general region. And this area today that's in gray is still covered by brimstone deposits to this day. And there is an astrophysicist who found a asteroid strike in Europe about the same time in history. And apparently the crater is of such that he did some calculations and he suggested that it could have thrown up Earth in Europe that landed here in this region of Canaan at that point in time. So he's saying that it could be natural occurrences that were used by Yahweh. It could have also been supernatural, but they're saying it could have been that Yahweh used his natural, the what we think of as the natural world, but his creation to work his will. And he does that a lot. So don't think that, oh, it was an asteroid, so it wasn't supernatural. The timing sure as heck was. And that's the point. And then finally, when Abram comes back, he's going to settle at the Oak of Mamre in Hebron, the region of Hebron. And this is going to be Hebron and Mamre. These oaks, Mamre and Moar or whatever, there's two oak trees mentioned in this storyline. Those are important because in their day and age, let me get me added back in here. In their day and age, the oak trees would have been connected to pagan worship. But we're told that Abram does not worship the local deities. He worships Yahweh at places that would have most likely been connected to the idea of a pagan deity. So I just wanted you to see the regions so when you see them mentioned, you have a rough idea of where we're looking and where it's going on. Most of these places that are going to be mentioned in this chapter and the next one are going to be very important to us as we go forward in Genesis and then into the Exodus story and into Joshua and Judges. So Abram went forth as Yahweh had spoken to him. And this is probably physical. This is a physical encounter with one of the two Yahwehs, the physical Yahweh, which we would call a Christophany. It's the Messiah in human form before he becomes incarnate. And Lot went with him. So Lot's his nephew. He goes with him. Now, Abram was 75 years old when he departed from Haran. So this all started when he was 75. Abram took Sarai, his wife, and Lot, his nephew, and all their possessions which they had accumulated, and persons which they had acquired in Haran. This tells us they were rich. By their standard, rich. Okay, what we would think of as rich today. And they set out for the land of Canaan. So this is the land that was settled by Canaan, son of Ham. And thus they came to the land of Canaan. Abram passed through the land as far as the site of Shechem to the oak of Morah. We've already showed you where Shechem is. That's going to be an important place. We're going to see that in the stories of Israel's history. Now, the Canaanites was then in the land. Yes, sir?
Yeah, you're going to see a couple mentions here of different trees, the oak here, and then I think there's a terebinth later on. And, you think, well, why are they talking about these trees? Trees were often planted because of a covenant of individuals over some purpose or another. So they became landmarks, basically in memorial of these covenants. And that's probably why these are mentioned here in the narrative.
Yeah, especially if you've been to the land, an oak tree is rare in Israel today, not back then. The Bible mentions oak trees and cedars, which are closer to what we would think of as sycamores, but still it's in the cedar family. And it mentions other, olive trees and things like this, but they had other trees that there's a reason that there's not as many trees in Israel today as there once were. And go thank the Muslims for that. But that's a different story. Anything else, Charlie?
Yeah, and that could be why the Muslims took them out too, because they were
Mm.
basically, symbols of covenants and things like that.
They're locusts. They cut them down for firewood.
Right.
We know that. We know that is a fact. It's in the annals of the Islamic history books that have now been opened up to us in history. It's been recorded that the land was wiped bare for firewood by all the invading jihadists. And most of the Fertile Crescent, that whole area was just wiped out because of the way Islam lives. They don't grow. They don't think of tomorrow. They live for the here and now. And they're like a locust on the land, which might be why they're described that way in the book of Revelation, or at least I think they are. Anyhow.
Could be.
It says, now the Canaanites was then in the land, and Yahweh appeared to Abram and said, to your descendants, I will give this land. So to Abram's descendants, this is the start of the promise. And we're going to have to be very careful, like Charlie was saying before pre-show. We're going to have to be careful about what we mean as the promised land. And who does the promise go to? Because Abram's going to have Lot, and he's going to have, but Lot's not necessarily his descendant, but he's also going to have Ishmael. He's going to have Esau, and they're not friendly to Yahweh. And then he's also going to have the sons of, is it Terah? I can't remember, Keturah. And some of them are going to be in the land. So which areas go to those sons or not, or lands of promise? Is that part of the inheritance? I believe it is. So a lot of that's going to end up tracing to the son of inheritance. So this is where it starts being where we need to pay attention. Don't just read over it. This isn't just a nothing burger. This is where it starts to get important, especially if you're going to trace the understanding of the prophetic meanings here and the birthright. Remember, scepter and the birthright. So he built an altar there to Yahweh who had appeared to him. This is the scriptures repeatedly tell us this is a physical appearance of Yahweh. He's appears to be in the flesh. Then he proceeded from there to the mountain on the east of Bethel. I've already showed you that. And pitched his tent with Bethel on the west and Ai on the east. So kind of in between. And there he built an altar to Yahweh and called upon the name, the Shem of Yahweh. Just like, Genesis 6:1, and men begin to call on the name of, he's worshiping Yahweh in a land that's under control of many different deities. So we've already got spiritual Deuteronomy 32 worldview warfare going on right now. Yes, sir.
Yeah, there may be even more of this going on, because when we say Bethel, that's the way it is in English. It's actually Beit El, which is translated as house of El. Now, the question would be, which El? Because it's possible that this was originally another deity, possibly, or it could have been Abraham, recognizing this as the place that Yahweh appeared to him. We don't know. The text is not clear on that, but
yes,
and we just to think about and go,
We do know that El in Canaan was the father of Baal,
right?
In their pantheon. So this could very well be the house of that, the father of Baal, because we know that the Canaanites are going to cause Israel problems with Baal worship, the Baals, and it's multiple Balaim in the Hebrew. There's more than one surrounding it. So we've already got the start of spiritual war going here.
Right. And that could be why this is so prominent, where you said that Beit El was, the second most prominent city in there, because if our suspicion is that Genesis is a polemic, that
or large parts of it are.
That could be why this is so significant, because
yes,
even if it were originally Beit El, as in the Canaanite deity, with Abraham being there and going to this place and Yahweh appearing to him, it could be part of that initial warfare where Yahweh is taking over and reclaiming territory here as well, kind of like Yeshua when he was at the Mount of Hermon, saying, upon this rock, this area here, I am going to build my kingdom, which was right upon the
Gates to
basically
Hades.
the gates of Hades there. So this is all, just keep this in the back of your mind as you're going through this narrative here.
This is the air they breathed. It's in the background to the original audience. This is all in the background. The things we're discussing for you, we're giving you the background context. If you accept the Deuteronomy 32 worldview, if you do, then all of this stuff rings very differently. You ain't changing a word. You're just understanding how much important it may have been, might be more than what you realized beforehand. Then verse 9, Abram journeyed on, continuing toward the Negev. That's that wilderness, that desert area. So in verse 10, now there was a famine in the land. So Abram went down to Egypt to sojourn there, for the famine was severe in the land. Abram went down to Egypt, just like my son goes to Egypt and the Messiah goes to Egypt. Israel will go to Egypt for the same reason, famine. They're going to flee to sustain life. They go to Egypt to sustain life. Remember when Jacob takes his family there, Israel flees to Egypt. That's where he's going to get his name, slightly before. But anyhow, they're going to go there to sustain their life. The Messiah flees there to sustain his life, to protect his life. Egypt is going to become known as physical bondage. Something to remember here. We'll get to it in a minute. But in blue, this is prophetic. And I highlight it in blue as a note to myself. But this is prophetic, far future prophecy. This is typology. This is straight up prophecy right there. If you're reading Genesis the way that I believe Moses intended us to read it and to understand it, because Moses is a prophet. He probably knows what's coming from all of this. Verse 11, it came about when he came near to Egypt that he said to Sarai, his wife, see now, I know that you are a beautiful woman, and when the Egyptians see you, they will say, this is his wife, and they will kill me, but they will let you live. Please say that you are my sister, so that it may go well with me because of you, and that I might live on account of you. It came about when Abram came into Egypt, and the Egyptians saw that the woman was very beautiful. She's about 65 at this time. Pharaoh's officials saw her and praised her to Pharaoh, and the woman was taken into Pharaoh's house. Therefore, he treated Abram well for her sake, and gave him sheep and oxen and donkeys and male, female servants and female donkeys and camels. That could have been a betrothal price, because he's thinking, okay, well, Abram is the male in charge of Sarai. Now, this is going to take us, I'm not going to go over this today, but I will put this up here and I'll ask, let's see, you can put that link in the, if you can, Natasha, you put that in the permanent record here. I'll stick it in the private notes. This might make it easier for you. But put that link in there. This is from Bible Hub. Yeah. I'm not doing good with all of that mess. All right. So Bible Hub, didn't mean for you to see that, but what the heck? You've suffered through it. Why did Abram call Sarai his sister? Well, later in scripture in Genesis 20, we're going to find out she's his half sister. She really is. So he told a half truth. But if you wanted to read through this later after class, you're going to find out that this is actually something that is known from archaeological records, that this happened. The people of the time, if you were a traveler, it was very dangerous, especially if you were female and you were considered to be beautiful, because they would take you either into a strong lord's harem or to the king's harem and kill your husband if you were married. So it's okay to murder, but it's not okay to commit adultery. That should ring a little bit in your head as to which is more important, at least scripturally, because this is adopted into the scriptures. And then you're going to have the idea of partial truths and cultural history and motive for self-preservation, theological significance and everything. So if you'd like, you can go back through that after class, read through that. Let's finish this section up before we take the break. Verse 17, but Yahweh struck Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarai, Abram's wife. Charlie, did you want to talk about that word plague or?
Yeah, we can talk about this real quick. Because this is actually a foreshadowing of the Exodus here. And you'll see it in English. They use the same translation here, plagues, but in Hebrew, it's really, that's a poor translation in my opinion. It should be a strike or a blow is the way this is, should be translated in my opinion. And so the same kind of thing is happening here to the Pharaoh in Egypt that will happen in the future during the Exodus. So this is, kind of that, connection
It's happening
between
to him for
different
the
portions.
same. It's
Right.
happening for the same reason. Sorry, Abram's wife. Who is Israel, or what is Israel to Yahweh in the Exodus story?
Yeah.
Israel's Yahweh's betrothed, is it not?
Betrothed. Yes. Mm-hmm.
It's Yahweh's wife in the Exodus story.
Right.
Here's because of Sarai, Abram's wife, Pharaoh is struck. In the Exodus story, because of Yahweh's bride, Pharaoh is struck.
And there's more going on here than, because I was thinking about this earlier when it was talking about, because during Abraham's time and during Israel's time, the reason they went to Egypt was because there was a famine in the land. Mm-hmm. Okay. And they were going there to preserve their life. They were going to a foreign nation, a pagan nation, to secure their safety during this famine.
Which is exactly what's going to happen to the northern kingdom.
That's what I was going to say. There's also scriptures that said there's going to be a famine of what? Of the word of Yahweh. And then the people are going to be brought to another nation, perhaps a pagan nation, where they are preserved and where they can build up and grow and things like that. So these ideas continue to go throughout the narrative here. So This is all stuff that, that's why we say if you don't understand Genesis, you don't understand the rest of the Bible, because all these ideas are going to echo forward in the scriptures.
The patterns of the Exodus and the second Exodus, they're already in the exiles. They're already being laid right here.
Yep.
Already. And calling you out, that's calling you out of the world. So Abram's crossed over. He's becoming a Hebrew.
Oh, yeah. In fact, which verse is it? One of the verses here where it does actually use that word. And maybe I guess we went past that one. I must have missed that one when you're going through. But when he was going into the land of Canaan, that's the word that's used over. There is he crossed over into the land.
Mm-hmm. All right, we'll finish up real quick. We'll take the bottom of the hour break. It says, then Pharaoh called Abram and said, what is this you have done to me? Why did you not tell me that she was your wife? Why did you say she is my sister, so that I took her for my wife? Notice that she didn't have any say in it. He took her. So we call that rape. But anyhow, now then, here is your wife. Take her and go. Pharaoh commanded his men concerning him, and they escorted him away with his wife and all that belonged to him. Pharaoh probably told him not to harm him. All right, we're going to take the bottom of the hour break. 3 minutes. We'll be back and we'll do the next chapter. Excuse me. We'll see you in 3. Dum. All right, chapter 13. Bear with me, folks. Suffering through this. Verse 1. So Abram went up from Egypt to the Negev. So he goes from Egypt back to the wilderness. He and his wife and all that belonged to him, and Lot with him. So Lot and everybody that belonged to Lot. Now Abram was very rich in livestock, in silver, and in gold. Usually, if you were wealthy in the ancient times, it was just livestock. If you had servants and silver and gold, dude, okay, we got a billionaire here on our hands type of thing. I mean, he's rich, which can't be, because we all know from modern teachings that Yahweh hates rich people, right? No. He hates people who love money more than himself. It's the love of money that's the root of evil, not money and wealth. It's how you use it. And we're about to see the generous heart of Abram here. And it's another typology being established. It's Yahweh rewards this heart, this type of heart. So verse 3, he went on his journeys from the Negev as far as Bethel, or Betel, back to that place again, to the place where his tent had been at the beginning, between Bethel and Ai, to the place of the altar which he had made there formerly. And there Abram called on the name or the Shem of Yahweh. Now Lot, who went with Abram, also had flocks and herds and tents. Tents meaning he's got a big family. And the land could not sustain them while dwelling together. There's not enough food and water for all the livestock. For their possessions were so great that they were not able to remain together. And there was strife between the herdsmen of Abram's livestock and the herdsmen of Lot's livestock. So you have servants, and they're fighting with each other. We're going to see this pattern again in the future, fighting over resources. Now the Canaanite and the Perizzite were dwelling in the land. Perizzite is going to be a problem for Egypt as well. I mean, for Israel rather, as well. So Abram said to Lot, please let there be no strife between you and me, nor between my herdsmen and your herdsmen. So Abram's looking for peace. For we are brothers, meaning that they're family. Is not the whole land before you? In other words, look, everything that is right here for you. Please separate from me. If to the left, then I will go to the right. Or to the right, then I will go to the left. Now, just as a quick aside, sometimes you'll see this verse, the fool's heart is inclined to the left, the wise man's to the right. And they'll say, see, look, that proves that the leftists in the world today are the ones that are fools. Folks, don't fall for that type of stupidity. This is a Hebrew idiom. If you go one way, I'll go the other. If a fool goes this way, I go the other way. It could have just as easily been the fool's heart's inclined to the right, the wise man to the left. In other words, the fool does one thing, the wise man does something else. Be careful when you're dealing with Yahweh's word. I know it's cute. I've even used it before, but reverence for the word of the Creator. Verse 10, Lot lifted up his eyes and saw all the valley of the Jordan, or Jordan, that it was well watered everywhere. This was before Yahweh destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. So at the time, it's like the garden of Yahweh, like the land of Egypt as you go to Zoar, which is why they went to Zoar to stay alive, because there was food there. It was well watered. This is the motif of a well watered land or garden being blessings. So what Lot does is he looks and he picks the best for himself. That's what we see in 11. So Lot chose for himself all the valley of the Jordan. And Lot journeyed eastward. Thus they separated from each other. This is going to have ramifications for Lot in the future. Abram settled in the land of Canaan, while Lot settled in the cities of the valley. Cities instead of the land. That's a motif, a pattern that is also well established even to this day. Our founding fathers, Jefferson was very famous for this. We'll do well until we start piling ourselves up in cities. Why? Because if you live in the city, sooner or later, you start thinking of it as building a Shem for yourself, and you forget who your creator is. So while Lot settled in the cities of the valleys and moved his tents as far as Sodom. So he went as far as Sodom. Now the men of Sodom were wicked exceedingly, and sinners against Yahweh. So they were very wicked. And Lot chose to dwell with them. That's not a good thing. That's an act of choice. And yet, that's where he went. Verse 14. Yahweh said to Abram, after Lot had separated from him, now lift up your eyes and look from the place where you are, northward and southward, eastward and westward. For all the land which you see, I will give it to you and to your descendants forever. I will make your descendants as the dust of the earth. That's prophetic. So that if anyone can number the dust of the earth, then your descendants can also be numbered. So that's an exceedingly great number. Arise, walk about the land through its length and breadth, for I will give it to you. So we don't know if this is a case of walk about the land you want to claim. Is this just walk about and see what the land I'm giving you looks like? Or is this walk about the land so that you can claim what I've already given you? It could be all three at the same time. But he's told to go ahead and travel the land. Verse 18, then Abram moved his tent and came and dwelt by the oaks of Mamre. That's going to be important here in the future too. The oaks, plural, of Mamre, which are in Hebron. And there he built an altar to Yahweh. So he's got a third altar in the land since he's been there. Shechem in that area to the east of Bethel. And now we have one by the oaks of Mamre. And he's still loyal to Yahweh. And he's starting to travel all over the land of Canaan. Now, Lot supposedly is going to keep worshiping Yahweh. We don't know. We do know, but by the time we see him again in the future here, next couple chapters we're going to see him. But I mean, by the time we see him in the story of Sodom and Gomorrah and what happens to them, he's the only righteous person left, which is going to be very reminiscent of Noah, the only righteous person left on earth. Lot is going to be deemed the only righteous person left for the area of Sodom and Gomorrah. But now here's the thing. Yahweh, the story in the future is going to tell us that there were more members of Lot's family than just the ones that, his two daughters and wife. And his wife turns back, which is reminiscent of he who puts his hand to the plow, but then turns back is not worthy of serving in the kingdom of Yahweh. It's kind of reminiscent there. Looking back on Lot's wife, she's going to look back to the life she's leaving. She's covetous and envious of that life. And it's also probably not only does she want to live that life, but she's afraid of what she's going into. So the only two that are saved through this are the daughters. And then they're going to follow Ham, his example, and have incestuous bastard children who are going to be like Canaan. They're going to both become enemies of Yahweh's people in the future. So there's patterns being set up here that will carry forward into the future. We'll see more of them in the future. We're also going to see how people are saved just for the sake of the Father. Well, under the new covenant, that gets removed, and you're saved only for yourself. You can't save the whole family anymore. There's a period of time in the apostles' lifetime where you could still have the household saved, but the prophets are going to tell us that there will come a point in time when a man can no longer save his family or his son, but be lucky to save himself as a man through fire. So that's probably one of the prophetic passages that Paul has in mind when he says saved as a man through fire. He's probably thinking of that prophecy. But what we've got here is the story of Abram coming to the land of Canaan, going to Egypt, setting a precedent, setting a typology, coming back into the land again through the wilderness. Both times goes into the wilderness and out of the wilderness. That's going to be kind of like Egypt and in the Exodus story. It's very typological. It's prophetic in nature. These are the things that we should be paying attention to and noting, as well as the places. The places are going to be important to us. They're going to have spiritual meaning and connotations as we go forward in the history of Yahweh's people. So this is what chapters 12 and 13 should cement in our mind, as we've got some typologies being set. We've got some patterns being established, or already, like in the case of Lot, already being reinforced from Noah's story. And Lot settles in the city. Well, that's going to connect him back to Cain, because Cain went and built a city so that he'd have a Shem. And we'll see that whenever people, Babylon, we've already seen that. Whenever you establish a city, sooner or later, people start to build a Shem for themselves, a name for themselves, and they start building up to make a great monument to themselves, to their creative, and you start the bigger the city gets, the less and less your focus is on Yahweh, the creator, and on worshiping him. And more you start to worship yourself. This isn't condemning city dwellers. What it is a typology. It's a tendency. It's a pattern in humanity. That's what I want you to focus on. The tendencies follow. Why? Because when you're living in a city, you get disconnected from the land, where if you're living in the land as a herder or a farmer, you're dependent on Yahweh. If you don't have rain, you don't have grass to feed the sheep, and you don't have rain to grow the crops. You're dependent on Yahweh. Where if you're in the city, you forget that your food comes from the farmer and the herdsman who depend on Yahweh. So you forget that your life actually does depend on Yahweh, but you forget that. You start thinking it's all you, man's doing. And we want to make a big name for ourselves. You know, we want the fame and the fortune. That's the pattern. It hasn't changed. Nothing's changed. We've never learned. We're a stiff-necked people, not just Yahweh's people, but all of humanity. So this is what I'd like us today for 12 and 13. I don't know if there's comments or anything, questions or anything on the board. Charlie, is there anything that you'd like to add to all of this? Because I'm about out of gas.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've covered most of it here. We've talked about it as we have went through this, of how this is all, setting up the stage for what's coming in the future, and you can see there's connections being established already as you move forward in the narrative, and it's interesting to see how all these things fit together and how their typologies repeat later on and in different scenarios and such. At least, in general, they're a little bit different, in the specifics, but the ideas and the concepts are still going forward there. So,
and
that's what we should be looking at even today.
Yes, we're already setting the criteria for how to trace peoples from the Northern Kingdom and Southern Kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
You're already setting the prophetic criteria for how to trace certain people through time. Okay, sociologically and archaeologically, you're already setting the patterns for how to trace these people through time. And that would make you a hunter of men. You're hunting Yahweh's people. So these patterns are already being laid down and established.
And it also makes some statements by the Pharisees interesting, because, they're claiming to be children of Abraham, but which children of Abraham? That's, I think that's kind of the discussion that Yeshua is making with them too.
Yes. And they're also making the mistake of thinking that they're tracing their blood lineages, not their spiritual. That's kind of not a good thing in Nebuchadnezzar's vision of the statue, isn't it? The toes, they trace themselves through bloodlines. Well, that's not a good thing either. Because where I think the legs could be Islam, they could just as easily be the Catholic versus the Protestant church.
Yeah, very well.
So be careful. I still think it's Islam. I know a lot of people think it's Rome. I don't. And that's because, history records the Greco-Roman Empire, not the Greek and then the Roman. There was an Eastern-West schism in the Greco-Roman Empire. Well, Joe, that's the two legs. How many thighs do you have?
Mm-hmm.
So you start out with the hips, which is Greece, and then it schisms into two halves, the Byzantine and the Roman Empire. Yeah, it fits the statue and the pattern. That's all I'm saying. I know a lot of people disagree with me. That's okay. If you understand Islam, those legs fit too. Very, very well. But what I'm looking at here today for this point in time, look at the typology that's already being set up. We're in chapter 13 of Genesis. You've already got a lot of important stuff laid on your table. You've set the stage for the Deuteronomy 32 worldview. Mm-hmm. You've set the typologies of the Exodus already. You've set the typologies of those who are going to babble, who are going to want to disobey God intentionally, Yahweh, and try to make man into. So you've got the typologies for secular humanism already laid down, and for worship of other deities which is going to be, that's Genesis 10 and 11. That's been laid down. The storyline is already getting the main themes concrete. We haven't even started to get into the details yet. So as you get more and more, you got the main themes now. As we get more and more into the details, you're going to start seeing separations within the way these people groups live their prophetic prophecy. And then toward the end of Genesis, you're going to have very specific prophecies over these people. And if you're going to look at them physically, that'll help. But if you're only looking at the prophecies physically and not spiritually, you're not going to be a very good hunter of these people later on. You have to look to the spiritual first, physical second. Or do you think I'm wrong with that, Charlie?
I think that's the way we got to look at this, because that's why this is so important, because it lays the foundation for everything else that happens later on. And they all tie back to these things that we're talking about right now.
Natasha, shoot him.
Oh, yep.
Boom.
She's got one.
Headshot.
Yeah. Well, we
right,
went a couple of
folks.
days without some of those, so yeah, they're back again.
All right, let's wrap this one up today. I apologize, but I've talked myself out, and my sign says, "Oh Lord, fill my mouth with worthwhile stuff and nudge me when I've said enough," and He's nudging me. We thank you for being here with us, studying with us. We hope that we're helping you to get a deeper and more fuller understanding of Genesis and the process, and of your faith, and of the foundations of our faith. It is our hope and prayer that we are faithful to teaching Yahweh's word as He would have it taught today in our world and our culture. And to the extent that we hit the mark, praise be to Yahweh and His Son. To the extent that we fail, it's all on me. It's not on Charlie and Natasha. I mean, that's me. I'm the idiot right there. So not them. Blame me. We're grateful that you're here with us, studying with us. Please understand that your comments, your questions, we need them. We want them. There's one of you here that I still owe an email back to. I know I'm getting it. It's on my to-do list. Bear with me. If I get to feeling better today, I will do it today. Otherwise, I've actually gotten pretty good. Everybody else has been answered to the best of my knowledge and understanding. Last time I checked the email list, I've answered everybody. But this one was a little tougher. I have answered them once, and so did Charlie, but I want to expand. But we do value your questions and your comments and your guidance, because you help us. Yes, Miss Boatwright, I'm going to go to sleep when we're done here. I'm dying right now. And you remember what the hay fever season used to be like for me when I was a kid. It's bad. It's that bad right now. I'm having a hard time seeing. I've even had allergy shots. They didn't work. Just made me afraid of needles now. Had them when I was a kid. So anyhow, sorry I'm rambling. Thank you for being here. We appreciate it. We love each and every one of you. Tomorrow we're going to be in Jeremiah. See if we can't tackle 2 or 3 chapters. I love Jeremiah, but I love Hosea even more. Thursday, we're going to wrap up the Bible Amongst the Myths, which is going to get into history taking, which is that's an important thing right now with what's going on in the world and understanding history, especially with Iran. And then Friday, we will do the next chapter in the Scepter and the Birthright. So until we see you all again, y'all take care. Stay safe. Bye-bye.